Jonah had never expected his quiet life to change so suddenly. One ordinary evening while he was watering the small garden behind his house, a soft hum filled the air. He looked up and froze. A sleek, silver spacecraft hovered just above the grass, its surface reflecting the dim orange of the setting sun. Jonah's heart raced as a small hatch opened with a hiss, and a figure stepped out. The figure looked human at first glance. She was tall, slender, and had long, flowing hair that shimmered like a faint rainbow in the sunlight. But there was something different about her. Her eyes were enormous, almond-shaped, with irises that seemed to hold galaxies inside them. Her skin glowed faintly, as if tiny lights moved just beneath the surface. Jonah stepped back instinctively, unsure whether to run or stay. "I am Lyra," the alien said, her voice soft, musical, and strangely calming. "I have been sent to live here to understand humans." Jonah blinked, his voice caught in his throat. You're my roommate," he stammered. Lyra tilted her head slightly, her expression curious but calm. "Yes, I will observe, learn, and experience." Jonah swallowed hard. He had expected strange, yes, but not a literal alien teenager living in his house. His mind raced with questions. Was she dangerous? Was she friendly? And most importantly, how would she fit into his quiet, ordinary life? He motioned toward the door. "See, come inside then. I guess we can start there." Lyra moved gracefully, like she was gliding rather than walking, and stepped into the house. She examined every corner with careful attention, touching nothing, yet her eyes missed nothing. Jonah watched her in silence, both fascinated and unnerved. He had never met anyone or anything like her. Over the next few hours, Jonah tried to explain his daily routines. When he woke up, what he ate for breakfast, how he did laundry. Lyra listened intently, nodding, her face expressionless yet oddly expressive at the same time. She asked questions, not about the chores themselves, but about why humans did them. "Why do humans eat in such a fixed way?" she asked, her voice curious. Jonah blinked. "Well, it's just habit, I guess. Humans like routine, it feels safe." Lyra's eyes flickered, a tiny glow pulsing with thought. "Safety, emotional security, I will record this. I need to understand humans' attachments." Jonah realized that her observations were more than casual curiosity. She wanted to experience human emotions in a deep, real way. And somehow, he felt the responsibility settle heavily on his shoulders. He was no longer just a person living alone. He was a guide, a teacher, and perhaps even a protector. That night, as he prepared dinner, Lyra followed quietly, studying him with careful attention. Jonah noticed how she tilted her head when he smiled, how her large eyes seemed to absorb even the smallest details, like the way his hands moved, or how he laughed at his own awkward jokes. There was an intensity in her gaze that made Jonah feel both nervous and strangely connected. After dinner, they sat in the living room. Jonah tried to make small talk, but words felt clumsy compared to the presence of this alien girl who seemed to feel everything in ways he could not yet comprehend. She reached out tentatively, brushing her fingers against a glowing flower on the table, and Jonah realized she was not just observing, she was learning how to interact, how to connect. For the first time, Jonah felt a strange warmth. This alien, who had appeared like a spark from another world, was not only curious, she was searching for understanding, searching for something human. And somehow, he knew that their lives, quiet as they had been, would never be the same again. Outside, the spacecraft hummed softly in the dark, and Jonah wondered what adventures and challenges Lyra's presence would bring. He didn't yet know the depth of her curiosity or the intensity of her learning, but he did know one thing. His ordinary life had changed forever, and there was no turning back. The next morning, Jonah woke to the soft hum of Lyra's breathing. She had moved from the living room to the small corner where he had set up a mattress for her. Sunlight filtered through the curtains, bouncing off her glowing skin, and Jonah felt a strange mix of awe and anxiety. He wasn't sure what he was supposed to teach her, or how much she would understand. Lyra stirred, blinking her large, luminous eyes. "Good morning," she said in her soft, melodic voice. "I wish to begin learning about daily human routines." Jonah nodded, a little uneasy. "All right, breakfast first." She followed him to the kitchen, watching every motion as he prepared eggs and toast. She reached out, touching the bread lightly, almost as if she were afraid it would vanish. Jonah noticed how carefully she observed, storing every detail. "I notice humans eat together sometimes," Lyra said quietly. "Is this part of bonding?" Jonah paused. "Yeah, sharing meals is a way we connect, show care. It's simple but important." Lyra tilted her head, her eyes shimmering with curiosity. "Connection, security, understanding feelings, I will attempt this," she murmured. She picked up a slice of toast, mimicking Jonah's actions, and took a bite. The way her expression softened as she tasted it made Jonah realize she wasn't just observing, she was trying to feel. Throughout the day, Lyra shadowed Jonah everywhere. She watched him brush his teeth, read a book, even water the small plants in the garden. At first her movements were stiff and deliberate, almost mechanical, but gradually she began to mirror his mannerisms more naturally. Her laughter, when something amused her, was delicate yet infectious. Jonah found himself laughing along, feeling a warmth he hadn't expected. Yet not everything was easy. Some human behaviors confused her. When Jonah frowned over a bill, she asked, "Why do humans worry about numbers?" He sighed. "It's stress, fear of consequences. You might not need it, but humans feel it." Lyra's skin glimmered faintly as if reflecting her thought process. "Curious, emotions are illogical but powerful. I must understand this fully." That evening, Jonah decided to take her to a nearby park. He wanted her to see humans in their natural environment, interacting freely. Lyra's eyes widened as children ran past, dogs barked, and couples walked hand in hand. She watched everything with fascination, her body glowing subtly with each new observation. "Humans express care through touch, Jonah," she whispered as they sat on a bench. "They hold hands, embrace, and smile. Can this be taught?" Jonah hesitated. Teaching connection was not like teaching math or science. It was about trust, patience, and understanding. He took a deep breath. "Yes, but it can't be forced. It has to happen naturally between people who care for each other." Lyra nodded, absorbing his words. "I will attempt naturally." Her voice was quiet but determined. Back home, they cooked dinner together. Jonah showed her how to chop vegetables safely, and Lyra's long fingers moved with surprising precision. They talked about simple human experiences, favorite colors, the smell of rain, the feeling of soft fabric. Every small lesson seemed monumental to Lyra. Jonah realized that teaching her about humans wasn't just a task, it was a privilege. He was sharing his world, his feelings, and his perspective with someone who had never known it. By nightfall, Jonah felt exhaustion mingled with wonder. Lyra sat beside him, glowing faintly, her expression thoughtful. "Jonah, I do not yet fully understand humans," she said, "but I feel something. I feel warmth, curiosity, and a strange attachment." Jonah smiled, realizing that attachment was exactly what she was meant to learn. Not just facts, not just behaviors, but the messy, beautiful connections that made humans human. And in that quiet living room, surrounded by the faint hum of alien energy and soft lamplight, Jonah sensed that this was only the beginning of something extraordinary. Lyra was no longer just a guest or a student. She was learning to live, to bond, and to feel, and he was learning in return to see the world through the eyes of someone utterly different, yet undeniably alive. Days turned into weeks, and Jonah noticed a subtle change in Lyra. She no longer moved like a visitor learning routines. She began experimenting, testing the limits of human behavior. She watched him closely, how he smiled at strangers, how he reacted to jokes, how he sighed in frustration. Every detail fascinated her. Jonah wasn't sure whether to be impressed or wary. One evening, Lyra sat across from him, her large eyes glimmering. "Jonah, I wish to try something more personal," she said. Her voice was calm, but there was a flicker of curiosity that made Jonah's stomach tighten. "What do you mean?" he asked carefully. "I want to understand human bonds," she explained. "Not observation, but experience. The way humans connect emotionally and physically." Jonah swallowed. He realized she wasn't asking for a casual explanation. She wanted to feel it herself. He thought about boundaries, trust, and the fragility of human emotions. "We need rules," he said slowly. "Trust is important. Everything has to be safe, nothing forced." Lyra nodded. "Agreed. I wish to understand consent and emotional reciprocity. I will respect boundaries." That night they experimented in small, careful ways. She watched his gestures and expressions, mimicked them, and observed the effects. When Jonah laughed, she laughed too, softly, and her skin pulsed with gentle light. When he smiled, she reached out to touch his hand briefly, withdrawing when he flinched slightly. Jonah realized she was learning about closeness in a way humans often take for granted. Her curiosity was clinical at first, like a scientist nodding results, but he could see a spark of genuine emotion emerging. She was not just experimenting with touch, she was exploring trust, connection, and vulnerability. Over the following days, Lyra's experiments became more intricate. She tried sitting closer to Jonah during meals, mimicking his tone of voice, and observing his reactions when he shared personal stories. Jonah was cautious, but he could not deny the deepening bond. He felt protective, fascinated, and a little afraid of how quickly her curiosity was turning into genuine emotional understanding. One afternoon, they sat in the garden, watching the sunset. Lyra turned to Jonah, her expression serious. "I think I am beginning to understand attachment," she said. "It is not simply habit or observation. It is care, concern, sometimes pain when the other is distant." Jonah nodded slowly. "Exactly. Humans are complicated. Our emotions aren't always logical, but they're real. That's what makes connection meaningful." Lyra's glow shifted softly, almost imperceptibly, but it carried weight. "I wish to continue learning slowly. I want to feel this fully, not just understand it." Jonah felt a mixture of pride and apprehension. He realized that this learning wasn't just hers, it was his too. He had to navigate her curiosity carefully, to protect her innocence while helping her experience the messy, unpredictable nature of human emotions. That night Jonah found her staring at the stars outside the window. "Why are humans drawn to stars?" she asked. "They remind us there is more to life," Jonah said. "Something beyond ourselves, hope, possibility, connection." Lyra's eyes reflected the starlight, and for a moment she seemed fragile, almost human in her wonder. "I wish to understand hope," she whispered, "to feel it, to connect to it." Jonah realized then that her experiments were no longer scientific. They were deeply personal. She wasn't just observing humans. She was trying to become part of their world, to bridge the gap between species through emotion. He reached out and gently took her hand. She did not pull away. Her glow softened, warm and steady. Jonah knew that trust had been established, but he also knew that the path ahead would be delicate, unpredictable, and full of lessons neither of them could yet foresee. For the first time, Jonah felt a sense of awe and responsibility. Lyra's experiments with human emotions were shaping something far greater than curiosity. They were shaping a bond, fragile yet powerful, between two beings from entirely different worlds. The days that followed Lyra's first experiments were intense. Jonah noticed subtle shifts in her behavior. She seemed more restless, more absorbed in his reactions than ever before. She would watch him for hours, studying every smile, every frown, every gesture. It was as if she was trying to map the invisible currents of human emotion, but the more she observed, the more confused she became. One afternoon, Jonah returned from a walk to find Lyra sitting on the floor, glowing faintly, her head resting on her knees. "Lyra," he asked softly, kneeling beside her. "What's wrong?" She lifted her head slowly, and her large eyes were filled with something he had never seen before, frustration, confusion, and a strange ache. "Jonah, humans are unpredictable," she whispered. "I try to understand, to connect, but the feelings are messy. Why do humans hurt each other and themselves? Why do they hide or deny what they feel?" Jonah's heart ached. He had always known human emotions were complicated, but seeing her struggle to process them made it tangible. "Humans, we're not perfect," he said gently. "We feel deeply, but sometimes we don't know how to express it. We make mistakes. We hurt, even when we don't mean to." Lyra's skin flickered softly, a faint ripple moving across her glowing form. "I do not understand," she murmured. "Why can't feelings be simple? Why must attachment and care come with fear, jealousy, and pain?" Jonah sat beside her, unsure what else to say. He realized that teaching her about emotions was more than just showing gestures. It was about helping her accept the chaos of human hearts. He placed a hand lightly on hers. "It's not simple, Lyra. That's the beauty and the danger of it. You feel more because you care. And caring, it always comes with risk." She stared at him, trying to absorb the words. For a moment her glow dimmed, as if the weight of understanding was pressing down on her alien body. I do not know if I can handle it," she admitted, her voice trembling. "The emotions are overwhelming. I feel attachment, concern, curiosity, even something like fear when I might hurt you or be rejected." Jonah felt a surge of protectiveness. He had seen her struggle, but this vulnerability struck him deeply. "You're allowed to feel," he said firmly. "It's okay to be overwhelmed. I'll help you. We'll take it slow. You're not alone in this." Lyra blinked, and for the first time she leaned slightly against him. Jonah could feel the subtle warmth radiating from her skin, an alien form of comfort, fragile and luminous. "I want to understand fully," she whispered, "but I am afraid. What if I fail?" "You won't fail," Jonah said gently. "You're learning, and learning sometimes means making mistakes. That's how humans grow. That's how relationships grow." Her eyes softened, and her glow shifted to a calm, steady light. Jonah realized she was trusting him completely, surrendering to a vulnerability that went beyond curiosity. She was letting herself feel, fully, even if it scared her. As night fell, they sat together in the living room, quiet except for the hum of her internal energy. Jonah reflected on how far she had come. She had started as an observer, a curious alien wanting to study humans. Now she was attempting something far harder, to live their emotions, to process them, and to connect despite their unpredictability. Jonah knew the path ahead would not be easy. There would be confusion, frustration, and mistakes. But seeing Lyra struggle with human emotions, seeing her try despite the fear and uncertainty, filled him with a quiet admiration and hope. She was learning, slowly but surely, not just to mimic humans, but to feel them. And in that shared vulnerability, their bond deepened, becoming something neither could have predicted. Jonah reached out again and brushed a strand of shimmering hair from her face. Lyra leaned into the touch, and he realized something important. She wasn't just experimenting anymore. She was beginning to experience, in the rawest sense, the beautiful and chaotic gift of connection. And for the first time, Jonah understood just how much trust and courage it took for her to do that, how fragile yet how extraordinary the human heart could be, especially when shared across worlds. The next morning, Jonah noticed Lyra moving with a quiet unease. She had been unusually still, sitting by the window and staring at the garden as if trying to solve a problem too big for her mind. Jonah's stomach tightened. He had learned to read her subtle changes in expression, and something told him she was troubled. I saw humans outside," Lyra said finally, her voice hesitant. "They watched me yesterday. They whispered and looked at you strangely." Jonah sighed, understanding immediately. Their neighbor, curious about the unusual girl living with Jonah, had probably spotted them laughing and interacting too closely. Gossip had a way of growing like wildfire in small neighborhoods, and now Lyra was aware of the social consequences that humans often carried alongside emotions. "They are just curious," Jonah said softly, trying to calm her. Humans notice things they don't understand. Sometimes they judge without knowing. It doesn't mean anything bad about you. Lyra tilted her head, her large eyes shimmering with faint worry. I do not wish to be a source of conflict, Jonah. I merely wanted to learn to connect. Why would humans respond with suspicion or fear? Jonah hesitated. Humans are complicated. Fear of the unknown, it is natural. Sometimes people don't understand things outside their experience, so they assume the worst. Her glow flickered as if the explanation itself was too complex for her to fully accept. I have only wanted connection, not harm, she whispered. But now I sense that my presence may cause distress. Jonah felt a surge of protectiveness. He had promised to guide her through human emotions, but now he realized this was a lesson beyond the private safety of their home. Humans could be unpredictable outside the boundaries of trust and familiarity. He reached for her hand gently. Lyra, you are not causing distress. You are learning, and sometimes learning is uncomfortable for others. That's not your fault. It's okay. Still, Lyra seemed hesitant. The idea that her experiments, her attempts to feel and connect, could be misinterpreted weighed heavily on her. Jonah could see her stepping back instinctively, unsure of how to act in a world where appearances could trigger fear or misunderstanding. Determined to reassure her, Jonah suggested they spend the day outside, walking and observing humans discreetly. He wanted her to see that curiosity alone was not dangerous, and that trust could exist beyond walls. Lyra agreed, though her movements were cautious, almost tense. As they walked through the park, Lyra studied the humans carefully. Couples held hands, children played freely, friends laughed together. She noticed gestures of affection, support, and care that were natural to humans yet foreign to her. Jonah explained quietly, humans are like this in private and public. They share joy, they care for each other, even if some people judge what they see. Lyra nodded slowly, absorbing the lesson. I see now, connection is not only a personal experience. It is observed, mirrored, and sometimes misunderstood by others. Learning must include awareness of perception. Jonah smiled softly. Exactly. Feeling is important, but so is understanding context. Humans are complicated, not only inside but in society too. By evening, they returned home. Lyra seemed quieter but thoughtful, processing the lessons of the day. Jonah prepared tea, and they sat together in the warm light of the kitchen. For the first time, Jonah realized that Lyra's journey to understand humans wasn't only about personal bonds. It was about navigating the world that humans had built, with all its expectations, judgments, and social intricacies. I will try, Lyra said finally, her voice steady but reflective. I will continue learning carefully. I will balance curiosity with awareness. I wish to belong without causing fear or misunderstanding. Jonah felt a deep sense of pride. She had faced her first real challenge, the complexity of human perception, and had not faltered. More than that, she had shown resilience, patience, and a willingness to adapt. He knew that the path ahead would include more obstacles, but also more lessons, more growth, and more moments of profound connection. As night fell, they sat together, watching the faint glow of the stars outside. Jonah felt a sense of quiet hope. Misunderstanding could challenge them, but it could also teach them the subtle art of trust, patience, and empathy. And for Lyra, every new experience, even one fraught with human judgment, was another step toward becoming more than an observer, toward truly feeling, understanding, and belonging. Spring had started to color the garden with soft blooms, and Jonah noticed that Lyra's movements were calmer, more deliberate. She no longer mirrored him mechanically or observed him with detached curiosity. Instead, she was learning to blend observation with genuine feeling. Her large eyes often lingered on him with a quiet intensity, as if she were seeing not only his actions but his emotions beneath them. One morning, Jonah found her sitting on the porch, holding a small notebook where she had sketched human expressions. Each face was carefully drawn, with notes about happiness, sadness, fear, and love. Jonah, she said softly, I think I am beginning to understand humans. Not only their gestures, but their intentions, their feelings behind them. But it is complex. I cannot always predict reaction or emotion. Jonah smiled, sitting beside her. That's okay, Lyra. Humans aren't predictable. We have contradictions, we make mistakes, and sometimes we act before thinking. That's part of what makes emotion real. Lyra's fingers brushed the page, tracing a sketch of a laughing child. I see it, joy. But I also see caution, hesitation, even hidden pain. Humans carry so much inside themselves. Yes, Jonah said gently. And part of learning about humans is realizing that emotions are layered. Happiness can exist with sadness, care with fear, trust with doubt. She looked at him carefully, her glow soft and steady. Jonah, when you interact with me, I notice concern, patience, guidance. It is unlike observation, I feel it. I understand that you wish to teach, to protect, and to share. Are these human feelings? Jonah felt a warmth rise in his chest. Yes, Lyra. Care, patience, and wanting to guide someone you trust, those are deeply human. Lyra's large eyes shimmered with quiet excitement. I wish to respond in kind. I wish to show understanding, respect, and trust. I wish to connect fully as humans do. Over the following days, Lyra experimented in new ways. She shared stories of her home world, her family, and her experiences aboard her spacecraft. Jonah listened intently, realizing that her sharing was a kind of emotional exchange, an offering of trust and vulnerability. In return, he shared his memories, fears, and small secrets, things he had never told anyone before. One evening, as they watched the sunset from the garden, Lyra placed her hand gently on his arm. Jonah flinched slightly at first, then relaxed. He realized she was not simply testing him, not conducting an experiment. She was reaching out with understanding and care. I wish to comfort you, Jonah, she said softly. I wish to share feeling, not only learn it. Jonah swallowed, touched by the sincerity in her voice. You already do, Lyra, more than you know. Her glow pulsed softly, a warm radiance that seemed to echo her emotions. Jonah realized that Lyra had moved from observer to participant. She no longer simply watched human life. She lived it in her own unique way, learning its rhythms, its vulnerabilities, and its beauty. They laughed together that night over small mistakes in cooking, shared silence as the wind rustled the trees, and even found quiet joy in the mundane, watering plants, watching clouds drift, or simply sitting side by side. Jonah noticed that these ordinary moments had taken on extraordinary meaning because they were shared, understood, and felt together. Lyra's voice broke the comfortable silence. Jonah, do you think I can ever fully belong here, among humans with your world? Jonah reached out, brushing a strand of shimmering hair from her face. You already belong, Lyra, he said gently. Belonging isn't about fitting perfectly, it's about letting yourself feel, learn, and connect. You've done that. You're part of this world because you care, and because you allow yourself to be seen. Lyra's large eyes glimmered, filled with gratitude and something tender, unspoken. For the first time, she seemed completely at ease, her glow warm and steady. Jonah realized that understanding had been achieved, not through observation alone, but through shared experience, trust, and emotional honesty. And in that quiet garden, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Jonah and Lyra shared a profound silence, a moment of true connection that neither had anticipated when she first arrived. She was no longer just learning humans. She was feeling them, living them, and in a way becoming part of the heartbeat of this strange, beautiful world. The garden was quiet that evening, bathed in the soft glow of twilight. Jonah and Lyra sat side by side on the small wooden bench, their shoulders almost touching. The air was filled with the scent of blooming flowers and the faint hum of life all around them. For weeks, they had shared laughter, small discoveries, and moments of vulnerability. Now, there was a calm understanding between them, deeper than words could describe. Lyra looked at Jonah with her luminous eyes. Jonah, I have learned much, she said softly. Not only about human habits, but about feelings, trust, and connection. I understand now that humans are not perfect, that love and care are complicated. Yet, these complications make them beautiful. Jonah smiled, feeling a warmth that had nothing to do with the spring air. That's right, Lyra. Humans are messy, unpredictable, but that's what makes connection meaningful. It's not perfect, but it's real. She tilted her head, her glow steady and gentle. I wish to continue learning, but I no longer feel afraid. I know I have someone guiding me, someone who trusts me. I feel belonging. Jonah's chest tightened. He realized that her words carried more weight than he had expected. She wasn't just an alien studying humans anymore. She was part of his world, part of the rhythm of life he had once thought ordinary. And in her presence he felt something extraordinary: hope, understanding, and a profound connection that bridged two very different worlds. They sat in silence for a while, watching the sky deepen to shades of purple and gold. The first stars began to appear, blinking faintly in the distance. Jonah thought about the journey they had shared, the awkward introductions, the careful experiments, the misunderstandings, and the moments of emotional turbulence. Each step had been a lesson, not just for Lyra, but for him as well. I never thought I would feel this way, Jonah admitted quietly. Having someone from another world, someone so different, it's changed me. I see life differently now. I understand humans more deeply just because I've been with you. Lyra's glow pulsed slightly, a warmth radiating from her that seemed to mirror his emotions. And I see the depth of your world, she said. I understand care, patience, trust, and the courage it takes to open one's heart. I never knew connection could feel so alive. Jonah reached out, taking her hand gently. She did not hesitate. Their fingers intertwined, a small gesture, yet heavy with meaning. He realized that the connection they had built was not about experiments or lessons anymore. It was about shared vulnerability, respect, and the courage to feel across differences. Lyra leaned slightly closer, her glow soft and steady. Jonah, thank you, she whispered. For patience, for guidance, for trust. I feel part of this world now, and I am grateful. Jonah's heart swelled. And I'm grateful for you, Lyra. You've shown me that connection isn't about sameness. It's about understanding, caring, and growing together. You've become more than a roommate or a student, you're a part of my life. The stars above them seemed brighter, reflecting the quiet triumph of their journey. Lyra's glow merged with the moonlight, a symbol of her transformation, from a curious observer to a being capable of understanding, feeling, and belonging. Jonah realized that what had begun as an experiment had blossomed into a profound bond that transcended worlds. As the night deepened, they remained there, side by side, sharing warmth, understanding, and a quiet peace that neither had expected. The world beyond their small garden was vast, unpredictable, and sometimes harsh. But in that moment, it didn't matter. They had found connection, trust, and friendship strong enough to bridge differences that seemed insurmountable. Lyra tilted her head, smiling softly. Jonah, I am ready to face tomorrow. Together, I believe we can navigate both our worlds. Jonah nodded, his heart light. Together, he agreed. And in the gentle night, surrounded by the soft glow of stars and alien light, they sat in silence, human and alien, teacher and student, friends and companions, bound by a connection that neither time nor distance could undo. A new chapter had begun, full of possibility, hope, and the quiet magic of understanding.